not a definite answer for her. And we've rented the house out, and I've just assumed $20,000 after expenses. So you can see this changes her situation quite a bit. So we've got a little bit less as total income coming in just with the assumptions I've used. Now, these case studies are highly dependent upon the assumptions we use. So it's not saying this is the right situation for everybody, it's saying what I've done, it's the right situation. And that's why it needs to be done individually with each client to work out what are the realistic assumptions for them. So, but the age pension's gone up. So by doing this, we've still taken a hit to the age pension. So she's not getting that full 17,000, but it's certainly a bit higher than the last one. So if people stop there and go, that's great, that's all I'm focused on, they can still come up with the wrong decision as well. But it does increase that pension. Total income is down a little bit. Her daily fees have gone up, so her pension's gone up, but her daily fees have also gone up because the income tested fees are going to be she's going to pay more of those because she's getting more accessible income. Because the difference we need to look at in here, and this is where it needs to be done carefully, is the difference between IOB showing actual income that she's getting, which is not necessarily the income that Centrelink use to work out the fees. Okay, so remember that there's a difference in those two levels of income as well. Interest costs, she's starting to pay some of those. So she's got $22,000 a year of interest costs on that reverse mortgage at 7.4% interest rate. So first, we can look at this and say we've managed to let her keep a home and it looks okay, we've increased her age pension. But initially we've got a bit of a problem because on a cash flow basis, well it depends. On a profit basis, her income profit is she's making a loss. So that means from an income perspective, it is costing her more to do this strategy than she's actually making from the investment she's got. Compared to just selling the house and making it all simple and she's making $20,000 extra profit. So on an income basis, we've got a nearly $10,000 loss. But we also need to remember that she's got a home. And part of this decision was about keeping the home as an investment. And it might have been purely on an investment basis, but it can also be tied up with a whole lot of emotional things as well about not wanting to sell Mum's home, wanting her to know it's still there. Believe me, I know when that happens because it happened with my grandmother. The family decided they would not sell the home while she was in the nursing home because they wanted her to know the house was still there. I suggested they just take her for a drive past it and wave the key at her and just tell her it was still there. I'm not quite sure how to explain the strange children in the front yard, but I'm sure we could have found a story around it. The problem that we had with that, so that was the decision the family made and they were very happy with that. The problem was they left the house vacant, so the house had absolutely no insurance on it. And I used to bring them up on a regular basis going, you know that house is still not insured. Have you been past to check it? So there are all of those other things that need to be thought through as well. So in this case we've got an income loss, but we have got growth on the house. So as long as that house was going to grow, so if the kids thought it was a good investment prospect and it's going to grow by more than 3.5% a year, then it actually will equal that first strategy. So that's what we're looking at, saying, well, it needs a 3.5% growth to equal and to come out as an even basis and say each one is financially going to make her in an even position. If the house increases, if it's a really good market and it's increasing more than that, then that option can actually be putting her financially ahead, putting the estate financially ahead, and keeping everybody happy. So, but they need to be aware of all the risks. They need to go through and do the numbers on it. The other thing we need to look at is just making sure she's got the cash available to pay all of this. The advantage of the reverse mortgage is that, so you can see that her expenses are higher than her income, but with the reverse mortgage she doesn't have to pay that out. So from a cash flow perspective, she's getting nearly $30,000 into a bank account. She only has to pay out the $17,000 in the fees. So she can afford to do that, and she's got the money in the bank still. So from affordability, it works. So it's looking at it from profitability, but also from cash flow, and can you afford it, or do the kids need to put in extra funds, some of the strategy as well. The third one that I want to look at is a variation, and it's one of the things that is a tip for most planners and a tip for the way you might want to think about when you negotiate with clients as well. Because what I've done in the third example is pretty much the same thing as the second one. The only thing is, instead of paying the entire $400,000 as a lump sum bond, I suggested you pay $390,000 a lump sum to reduce the reverse mortgage slightly, and pay $10,000 as a periodical payment. Now, my recommendation to advisors is that whenever you've got clients that are moving into aged care with a bond, if they want to retain that home, they should always try and negotiate some as a periodical payment. So if your facility doesn't allow any negotiation on that, you really are disadvantaging clients. Illegal to do what, sir?
Well, you've got to offer somebody the three choices of periodic payment.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry, that's a good point. What I would say to advisors generally is with this is to do the analysis, because there are so many things, there are so many financial things, there's so many assumptions, there's so many variations. So it is absolutely about providing options and showing the scenarios. I do say never make an actual recommendation which is the best one for them, because it depends. You might find that just they look at the finances and go, that's great, but really this makes me $5,000 a year better off, and we've got to maintain the property. We don't want to do that. We just want to sell it. And often the kids just want to sell it because it's easier from their estate planning perspective. It'll be much quicker to distribute the estate if the house is already sold. So absolutely, it's a really good point. That
why would facilities not allow you to do
in the past, some don't. Some because if you're going to do a periodical payment, then you need to have an admin system that will be set up to allow that. Your expenses are a little bit higher in maintaining and managing that rather than just taking the lump sum. You take a little bit of a risk in that when you've got the lump sum, you've got it, it's in your bank account, it's done. Periodical payment, you've got to rely on them actually paying it, collecting it off them each year. So sometimes they don't. I think as we understand the strategies, there is a shift more towards allowing it, particularly where it's a small amount. And I'll come back and I'll pick up some of those risks with the advice as well. It's a really good point to make from your own perspective too. But with this, again, it makes sense to always do that periodical payment because in this particular case, in the third example, you can see that the outcomes are very, very different. All we did was pay $10,000 of periodical payment. The reason why we have a different outcome is that if you move into a facility and you pay some of it as a periodical payment, keep the house and rent it out, that house stays an exempt asset for as long as they're there. In the middle example, they've only got 2 years of exemption. Okay, so we keep that exempt asset for as long as they're there, which can help their asset test assessment. But more importantly, the income, that rental income they're getting, is not assessable income. It's taxable from a tax point of view, but we can use a lot of offsets to reduce our tax down quite a lot. But the rental income is not assessable income. So it doesn't impact on their pension, and it doesn't impact on the income tested fees. So we can see that our pension, by just paying $10,000 as a periodical rather than a whole lot of lump sum, we've gone up to having the full age pensions. We've gone from $9,000 to $17,000. We've reduced the daily fees and from $17,000 to $13,000. So we're now cutting an income profit, and then we've got the growth still in the house. So the growth needs to be only 2.16%, so it's lower impact on the house.
So you're saying with option 3, the income tested fee, as long as the house is in the life of the person in care, is not limited. It's only the first 7 months where it's limited to 2 years.
What I'm saying, yeah, so with the third one, if you pay some as a periodical payment, the asset is exempt indefinitely, and the income is exempt indefinitely as well, as long as that arrangement's in place. So that applies in low care when you paid some of the bonds periodic, and it applies in high care if you've paid just the accommodation charge. So the accommodation charge is taken to be a regular periodical payment that you're paying to the facility. So the same thing works for the clients there, that